Hello, and welcome to Living Beyond Limits. I am Reverend Jennifer Spear, and we are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living. I am so glad that you joined us here for this online service this morning. Normally, when we meet in person, one of the first things that we do is say good morning to the people that are sitting around us. And what that really means is we get to move back into that place where we feel connected to each other and get to share our love with each other. And so, since we aren't together, I invite you to go ahead and do that right now. If you regularly attend our services, to imagine in your mind's eye some of the people that you sit near. And if you don't attend our services, just close your eyes and imagine in your mind some of the people that you love and care about. And to just send them some of your love right now. To wrap that energy of love around them and to feel that connection that you have with them, even if you're not physically together. And to just celebrate that. For that is the love of our own spirit, connecting with spirit in each other. And so as we begin our service today, I'm going to invite our practitioner, Carol Borowick, forward. And she's going to do an invocation for us and a contemplative reading. And so what I invite you to do right now is just to kind of begin to settle into yourself, to allow yourself to become still, and to allow the sound, the ringing of this bowl to just help you slow down a little bit.
And as I turn within this morning, this beautiful spring morning, I turn within to that place where I know and I am known, where I know that there is clarity and truth, where I know that I am an expression of the divine creator, and that each person in our spiritual family is an expression of the divine creator, and that every person in the world and every living thing is an expression of our divine creator. And I turn within with deep gratitude for knowing this truth, and for knowing that life is always for us, and that we are given an abundance of gifts, of beauty, of joy, of peace, of wholeness, of harmony, and of love, mostly of love. For everything created is created out of love, and love is always the answer. And I give thanks today. We are so blessed by Reverend Jennifer's message. I know that it just reaches each person perfectly as they need. And I know this day unfolds perfectly as we align ourselves with the divine spirit of good. And I just am so grateful for the abundance. And I release my words with joy and thanksgiving, and so it is. Good morning, everyone. Today I chose a reading from Master Meditations by Dr. Donald Curtis. He was a Unity minister and a colleague of Ernest Holmes. And it's titled, I Experience a New Birth of freedom. Anything I think, say, or do at a particular time reflects my comprehension of life, my relationship to God. I give thanks for the lessons I have learned from past mistakes or false beliefs, and today I know I am free and have the power to change anything in my life which I want to change. I alone decide the nature of my experience, because only I can think my thoughts. The law that produces the pattern of my experiences from the ideas I entertain and accept is as natural and exact as the law that produces plants according to the seeds planted in the ground. Today I take control of my thoughts. I awake to a new birth of freedom in the consciousness that this action fills every arena of my life as I come into agreement with it. Nothing is too good to be true. Nothing is too wonderful to happen. As I let the divine self be what it is in me, I enter into its perfection, harmony, and love right now. And so it is.
Thank you, Carol. Those are some powerful words. And doesn't it feel so good to drop back into that center within us and to hear words of truth? And so I'd like to share with you now our mission statement at Living Beyond Limits. And if you know it, I invite you to join me in saying it. And if you don't, I invite you just to take it in. It goes like this. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, we give way to the evolutionary impulse of the divine and become a beneficial presence in the world. And so that's what we're up to here at Living Beyond Limits, as we are giving ourselves the opportunity to remember what we forget sometimes. To remember that, yes, indeed, that infinite presence that is a presence of love and of peace and of wholeness and of our own authentic power, that all of those qualities of the divine live within us. They are innate to our beingness. We came to this planet already possessing them and owning them. But it's as we recognize that that is always within us, and as we own that, that then we have access to it at any moment. Then we have access to peace or to love or to the truth of our own wholeness. And what happens then is we're not so reliant on the outside world shining that, reflecting that back to us. And it puts us at a place of choice and at a place of power, and it enables us to be a beneficial presence in this world. Because then when we're in the world and things don't look peaceful, we can bring peace to the situation. When people aren't being loving or kind, we can bring love and kindness to that moment and to that situation. And as we do that, we become an example for other people. And the consciousness and energy that we come with affects the people in that circle, and it affects the whole, because in reality, everything is connected to everything else. And so I thank each and every single one of you for answering the call of your own spirit to be walking this path, to be bringing your light and your love into this world in a way that is beneficial to you and to everyone else. So thank you for that. And so we all want to be able to create a life of our choosing and to live a life of our choosing. We want to be free to choose who we are in the world and how we are in the world. We want to be free to choose who we are in relationship with and what we do for a career. We want to be able to choose how it is that we think and what to believe. Freedom is really important to us. And we live in a boundless universe. We live in a universe of infinite potential and boundlessness that is there for the taking and therefore our choosing. It is filled with boundless possibilities. And so Ernest Holmes told us that freedom is the birthright of every living soul. And the seed of freedom is planted in the innermost being of us. But it is up to each of us to discover and to nurture that seed. That seed of freedom lives within us. But we have to choose that freedom that's inside of us. And so there are times for all of us when we do not access all of the good that's available to us. The good that is around us, or even the good that already lives inside of us. And in turn, because we don't access all of that good, we don't live as fully as we might. We don't live lives that are as rich or full as they might be. And one of the things that keeps us from living full out, that keeps us from expressing the fullness of our being or bringing in the fullness of life, is that childhood conditioning that we get. That programming that we receive as children. And some of those childhood messages, that conditioning that we got, keeps us from embracing the greatest possibilities that are available to us in life. So all children are indoctrinated or programmed, conditioned, whatever you want to call it, by their parents and by their teachers and by religious figures that are in their lives, by any authority figures, and by the society and the culture that we live in also. We get these programmed messages that come to us consciously and unconsciously. We get direct messages of things that people tell us when we're growing up, like boys don't cry, or like girls don't do that, it's not ladylike. We get messages that aren't said to us indirectly, but because of things that are said about us, like Janie failed her math test. You know, she's just not very good at math. In fact, I think she might not really be that smart. It's a good thing she's pretty. We pick up those messages by things that we observe about how people behave and how people treat each other, how people talk to each other, how people talk about each other. And we get those messages by the roles that we see people play. And therefore we determine out of that what is appropriate and not appropriate. And so we've all received these messages from our childhood that get imprinted on our psyches. We came here as the pure light of spirit, unencumbered, unhindered. It's like we came as this brand new, clean whiteboard. And then all these messages get written on that whiteboard, and those messages become a part of our psyche, and they become a part of our personality. And yes, we all got messages that were encouraging and messages that were supportive, messages that gave us confidence and that enabled us to actually be constructive members of society. But we also got messages that today sometimes keep us from living the fullest life that we could live, that keep us from living a life of freedom or a life of owning and standing in our own authentic power. Perhaps you got messages that said it's not okay to make a mistake. Or perhaps you got a message that said it's not okay to assert yourself. Or maybe you got a message that it's not okay to have feelings or to express your feelings. And if you did have feelings and express those feelings, it meant that you were weak. Or maybe you were only told that the only emotion you got to express was anger. Or maybe you told the only one you don't get to express is anger. Perhaps you were given the message that it was your job to meet other people's needs. Or maybe that the world isn't safe, or that it's not safe to trust other people, or maybe even not safe to trust yourself. Maybe you got the message that there just isn't enough, so don't ask for too much and don't expect too much. Many of the messages that we got as children that our parents handed down, actually their parents handed them down to them too. And sometimes their parents handed them down to them also. And many of those messages that we got are limited, and they are inaccurate, and they just simply aren't true. Those messages and that conditioning that we got was unexamined by the people that gave it to us and unexamined by us. We just accepted it as reality and as truth. It wasn't chosen by us. And I really think until this generation, our generation right now, people didn't even look at those beliefs and to decide if they were true or accurate or right. I think people just accepted what they were told and what they were taught, and that became who they were in the world. I don't think it's until now that we're starting to look at some of that stuff and to determine if it serves us or not, and to decide to change it. And so the title of my talk today is, Whose Line Is It Anyway? And I'm talking about the fact that we are all conditioned and we are all programmed in our formative years. And that by bringing our conscious awareness to those beliefs allows us to actually transform them. But it requires us being conscious of them in order to transform them. I'm talking about also that as we identify with our own divine nature, it enables us to realize we aren't our conditioning, and we can step out of that conditioning because we come to know that is not who we are, and that is not what we are. We are something much more than that. And we are actually, like I said, that pure light of spirit that is free and unhindered. And I'm talking about how embodying new beliefs can be supportive and expanding to us and allow us to live fuller lives. And so I'd like to share a story with you. It says, a little girl was watching her mother prepare a fish for dinner. Her mother cut off the head and the tail off the fish and then placed them in the baking pan. The little girl asked her mother why she cut the head and the tail off the fish. Her mother thought for a while and then said, I've always done it that way. That's how Babika, Czech for grandma, did it. Not satisfied with the answer, when the little girl went to visit her grandma, she asked her grandma why she cut the head and the tail off the fish before baking it. And the grandma thought for a while and responded, I don't know. My mother always did it that way. And so the little girl and the grandma went to visit great-grandma and asked her if she knew the answer. Great-grandma thought for a while and then said, because my baking pan was too small to fit the whole fish in. That's those messages that are just handed down without ever being examined if they're actually accurate or true today or right for us. And so Ernest Holmes also said, the world is deluded, blind, and shackled. And by what? By its own acceptance of negative thought. It lies bound in chains of its own forging. Mind, which is our greatest gift, has been made our jailer. And we whimper in misery entirely at our own creation. Bondage exists nowhere in the universe except in the human mind. Bondage exists nowhere in the universe except in our minds. He also said, we are created with the freedom of God. And in this freedom, we are free to choose what we may think. And in what we think, we are continually bringing into our lives experiences we term good and bad. So the choice is ours, but it takes conscious awareness to actually change those thoughts and beliefs into something that supports us. And so our job then really is to notice when we are acting or reacting from some sort of false belief. When we are acting or reacting from some limited or limiting idea that we got from our childhood. To notice, that means to notice when you feel restricted. It means to notice when you feel somehow less than. Because those are indicators that you have some false belief going on, some limiting belief going on, most likely something you picked up from your childhood that you don't even know is there. And to ask yourself, when you notice yourself feeling restricted or feeling less than, or you're giving yourself a hard time, or you feel doubtful or insecure about yourself, to ask yourself, what is that underlying belief here? And to ask yourself, is it true? To examine those beliefs. And then in turn, to tell yourself the truth with a capital T. The truth that I am made in the image and likeness of that which is pure and whole and magnificent. To tell yourself the truth, I live in an opulent universe. To tell yourself, I love and approve of myself. To tell yourself the truth, I am the I am, which is limitless and free. But it takes mindfulness. It takes paying attention. It takes noticing when you are having a reaction rather than a response. It takes paying attention to our thoughts and our feelings, and then to ask ourselves, what is the underlying belief that's causing these thoughts and feelings if you're having thoughts and feelings that you don't like? It requires us to slow down and to pay attention instead of just automatically reacting. It takes introspection and it takes contemplation, and that takes time to get quiet and to talk to ourselves and look at what's going on and to ask ourselves, why am I reacting this way? What am I thinking? What am I believing? And to ask ourselves, where did that idea come from? To look at those underlying beliefs. And it takes self-compassion to recognize that everyone had this kind of programming. To have compassion with yourself, that was handed down to you. And to have compassion for yourself means to allow yourself to make mistakes and to allow them to be your teacher instead of a determinant about your worth, how valuable you are or how good you are. And for me, I really think it takes feeling safe. That safety means it's okay to make mistakes. That it's okay to make mistakes. They are our teachers. And we weren't meant to be perfect from the get-go. It takes knowing that life is for our growth. And when I know that life is for my growth, then it's safe to look at myself. Then it's safe to look at my conditioning. Then it's safe to look at my reactions and my motivations and the false beliefs that I might be acting out of. When you know that you aren't your mistakes, when you know that you aren't your mistakes, your experiences, or your thoughts, or your actions, then instead we can know that we are that pure light of the divine. And when we know that we are that pure light of the divine, here on a soul journey of discovering and of unfolding, then it's okay not to do everything perfectly, because it's a journey. And when we recognize we're on that journey, it's okay to make a mistake then. And when we know that, then it's not risky to look at our conditioning. It's not risky to look at the parts of our belief systems that really aren't serving us or really aren't allowing us to live our fullest and our best lives. Then it's okay to look at the ideas and the beliefs that might be keeping us small or that are keeping us from living that rich and full life. We have come here to bring our own magnificence to this planet. We have come here to shine our light. We have come here to benefit our own souls and to benefit God. Living a life of freedom enables us to do just that. And so we discover our true nature, our own divinity, the own essence of our spirit through meditation, through spiritual practice, through being in the silence with ourselves, by getting beyond our monkey mind chatter and the ongoing commentary about everything in the world that never stops. It's when we give ourselves some space and some silence to get beyond that thinking, even if it's just for a moment, that we get to discover that we are not that thinking, and we are not those feelings, and we are not that mind chatter, but then we touch the essence of who we are. And then we discover that we are not that conditioning. Then we discover that we are not that voice of our parents, or the voice of the teachers, or the voice of the authority figures or of society. Instead, in that silence, we discover the essence of peace. And we discover the presence of love. And we discover our own authentic power and our own wholeness. When we discover ourself with a capital S, when we discover who it is we really are, then that is the thing that enables us to move forward to living our full potential. It's the thing that enables us to live fuller and richer lives. And so my invitation to you this week is to notice anytime that you are feeling less than. To notice anytime you are feeling restricted in your life, like I can't do this or be this or have this. To notice when you're not feeling good about yourself. And to ask yourself in those moments, is there something from my childhood that's underneath this that is causing me to think this way or to feel this way? And when you uncover that belief or that thing that was handed to you, to ask yourself, is this true? Is it really the truth with a capital T? And then to actually tell yourself the truth that I am whole because I'm the wholeness of God. To tell yourself that I live in an opulent universe. To tell yourself that I am safe. Ernest Holmes said, if we consider that we are living in a spiritual universe governed by mental laws, the way to free ourselves is to recognize reality with a capital R. You tell yourself the truth with a capital T. What is the spiritual reality in this moment? I am whole. I am powerful. I don't live in a restricted universe. I live in an infinite universe. You tell yourself what you need to know in that moment. Becoming aware of those false or limiting beliefs about you and about life enables you to transform them. Then replace them. Use affirmations. Use spiritual mind treatment. Tell yourself the truth. Take the time to be mindful so that you can change them. And over time, as you start telling yourself the truth, that becomes the reality that you're living from. And that becomes the thing that motivates you through life instead of those old fears and doubts and negative messages that you got. And so embrace the truth and tell yourself the truth. And as you do that, you will be living your best life. Here, being the fullness of that which you came to this planet to be. And so blessings to you on this path of self-discovery, of this path of remembering the truth, and this path of being your magnificent self. Blessings to you. And so I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer. And so how good it is to just simply be in this place of remembering that, yes, indeed, I live in this infinite presence. And this infinite presence lives in me, for I am the outpicturing of the infinite mind and creativity and boundlessness of God. That is the nature of my life. That is the nature of who I am. That is the nature of life itself. And so today we step into the fullness of spirit and into the fullness of our own spirit. And we consciously and intentionally let go of those beliefs that are no longer serving us. Those beliefs that are not supporting us in living our fullest lives. And as I turn to the light, that light shines into my life as the truth, as the answers, as the solution, as the way. And so I recognize that we are each made out of the wholeness of God, the beauty of God, the magnificence of God. And that is what we are here being. And so everything that needs to happen happens to support us in living that as the fullness of ourselves. And everything that we no longer need simply dissipates, for there is no power to uphold it. There is no power to keep it in place. For God is the only power there is. And God is the power of truth. And so it is with a grateful heart that I release this prayer into the creative law of the universe, knowing that it is unfolding as all good in each and every single one of our lives right now, because that is the nature of life. And so I release this prayer in gratitude, and I say, and so it is. And so I have just a couple of invitations for you. One is next week is Easter Sunday, and we will be meeting at Hartwell Park at 11 a.m. for service in the park. So I hope that you join us for that. If you aren't on our mailing list and would like to be on our mailing list so that we can send you announcements of things that we're doing, as well as the map where we're going to be, you can email us at livingbeyondlimitscsl@gmail.com, and we will make sure to add you to that mailing list. You can also check out our Facebook page, which has the map where we'll be and has announcements on it also. I wanted to let you know that we are going to be doing a book study on the book Tattoos on the Heart, and it's going to be on Zoom. It's not a book study, it's a book club. So we are starting to read the book now, Tattoos on the Heart by Father Gregory Boyle, and we're going to get together on April 13th. On April 13th, on Zoom at 7 p.m. that night and talk about the book. It is a fabulous, inspiring book. I invite you to order it early because Amazon didn't have them in stock when I went to order them, or to go to a local bookstore and pick one up. But I invite you to join us for that. It should be lots of fun and a rich experience. I wanted to let you know that we are continuing to do Ministry of Prayer. So if you have a prayer request, you can send that to our email address, or you can let Barbara Conant know via email or phone call or text, and she will send that out to the practitioners and myself, and we will support you during the week in prayer. We also have prayer shawls if you'd like to be gifted with a prayer shawl and be wrapped in that energy of prayer. And lastly, I would just like to thank you for your ongoing support of Living Beyond Limits, and tell you that even though we don't see each other every week, that you are in our hearts and that you are a part of this family and that you are loved. So we look forward to seeing you next week at the park. Have a great week.